Hey all, and welcome to Shadow Space. Um, I'm gonna apologize again for last video. I'm gonna try not to be that, like that in this one. Commenting on another BCP video. This is called Jeff Bezos drops brutal economic reality check as Zohran Mamdani begs billionaires not to flee New York City. This is uploaded May 20th. This is being recorded May 21st, and links in the description. No.
When I last interviewed you, it was about 2 years ago, President Trump had just won. He was not the president yet. And I'd asked you what you thought of him at the time. And you said that you thought that he had mellowed, that he was calmer.
Yeah.
And I'm curious now, here we are.
Yeah. I still think...
I feel like there's probably a quieter place you could have done this.
2 years later, we've had lots of we have wars and tariffs and all sorts of things that have happened since then. What do you think?
I think he has. I mean, I'm comparing him to his first term, and I think he is a more mature, more disciplined version of himself than he was in his first term.
Wow.
You know, so he's again. I've worked with all the presidents. I will work with all the presidents. You know, and I hope to do that going forward if they'll have me. But we need our business leaders to provide input into the administration, regardless of who the president is. I'm not on the side. You know what? I'm on the side of America, and that is so important. Like, and that's where business leaders should be. It's just.
And do you think they're not?
No, I think we are, but we get perceived as being like, you know, partisan or whatever. Like, I was helping Obama every chance I could. I was helping Biden every chance I could. I still call Obama for advice. He's a very smart guy. And, you know, and by the way, people that are, Trump has lots of good ideas, and he's been right about a lot of things. You have to give him credit where credit is due.
You can't, you're not allowed to say that.
Has made this point repeatedly. I think she's made
you're gonna be in such big trouble.
Are able to pay a lower tax rate, even though you're paying an enormous sum in taxes, a lower tax rate than maybe I am.
Is he?
Sometimes say that you know, I don't pay taxes. That's not true. I pay billions of dollars in taxes. And it's a perfect, again, if people want me to pay more billions, then let's have that debate. But don't pretend, you know, that that's going to solve the problem. You could double the taxes I pay, and it's not going to help that teacher in Queens. I promise you. So you can't connect those two things, not logically. You know, there are more examples. Why is rent expensive? Why is rent so expensive? I recently saw somebody blamed it on Airbnb. Okay, Airbnb is not the cause of expensive rent. In fact, it's been almost, let me finish here 1 sec. It's already been outlawed in New York City, and rents are still very high. So we know Airbnb isn't causing high rents. What's really causing high rent is government intervention.
Boy. So we got to talk about this fascinating interview.
See, this is what happens. Just all of the people who actually understand how things work, no one actually listens to. The people that everyone listens to are the ones who don't know how anything works. This is a person who has literally gamed the system so effectively that he is now one of the wealthiest people in the country. And instead of acting like he knows anything, you act like you know better than he does. I don't understand how you could possibly think that.
CNBC featuring Jeff Bezos, who apparently has hopped on some TRT, right? He got his testosterone up, and all of a sudden he's not quite as liberal as he used to be. Okay, he's put on some muscle. He's grown.
I don't know about that, but again, like, doesn't he own the Washington Post or something? See, because the billionaires, the wealthy class, all get the same sort of treatment that Donald Trump does. Not all of them are treated the same. It's not like one of them is treated better or worse than the others.
Beard. He got a botched Latino woman. Yeah, he living life, right? All of a sudden, Bezos is MAGA with a little bit of testosterone, right? I really do believe that testosterone injections for liberal men, especially leftist men who vote Democrat, is the solution to a lot of our problems. Because I personally don't understand why any man with normal testosterone levels would vote Democrat or support socialism and leftist policy, right? I really don't get it. I don't understand it. But it's a huge problem in this country, right? A much bigger problem than a lot of people think. Okay, I'm just saying, Jeff Bezos is a great example of how you fix that. Get the testosterone up. But then again, Jeff Bezos is probably just looking out for his bottom line, to be honest with you. Okay, but regardless, he's going to give a reality check to Zohran Mamdani, okay, who is pushing tax the rich, but at the same time begging the rich to stay in New York City. Please don't leave, right? Just allow us.
Because that's the only way that tax the rich works, is if the rich stay there. But this is exactly the problem with tax the rich, is that if you do it too hard and they can't pay for it, they're going to leave. It's a balance. You can't tax them so much that they leave, but you can't tax you can't raise their taxes. I don't know. Doesn't matter.
To tax you more, please, okay? Give your fair share. Apparently, that is kind of how the meetings are going between Zohran and the billionaires, again, as he's begging them to stay in New York City.
Of yesterday afternoon, meeting with executives that make...
Didn't he already pass this second home tax? Did he not pass it? He wanted to pass it.
New York City, the financial capital of the world. Mamdani's office sharing...
He made that video. This is obvious that this is what he wants to do.
Business that he met with JPMorgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon at their new headquarters in Midtown, saying that the pair discussed how the public and private sectors can collaborate to deliver both excellent public goods and a thriving city where all New Yorkers can succeed. From JPMorgan's perspective, they said the meeting was constructive and included the importance of keeping the city competitive. Because JP Morgan has already been signaling with their hiring moves that they are more optimistic about other markets like Texas.
Wow.
The firm has reduced their headcount here in New York and now has more employees in the Lone Star State than in the Big Apple. Now, Mamdani also met with Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon at Gracie Mansion, but neither the city nor Goldman Sachs has given Fox Business a statement on how that meeting went. These talks are the latest efforts by Mamdani to make nice with the business community as he continues to push.
You can never make nice with the business community, because what he's telling the business community is, I want to steal more from you. You aren't giving me enough. You need to be giving me more.
Initiatives like city-run grocery stores,
When
his second one
out of Jeff Bezos' own mouth, I pay billions in taxes. Billions with a B. Multiple billions in taxes.
announced just yesterday.
You're a fool.
Massive tax increases on second homes and cash purchased homes. Mamdani also reached out to Citadel chief Ken Griffin, who he called out personally over his second home in New York City. You made mention of that. Citadel telling Fox Business that Griffin welcomes serious conversations about the policies that can grow the city's economy and that, quote, reckless political theater serves no purpose. But
yes, it does. It goes to show where his priorities are. He doesn't care that New Yorkers are going to be harmed with his tax. He just wants to harm them.
Neither the mayor's
he doesn't
office
care.
Nor Ken Griffin have said anything about when or if that meeting would happen.
Yeah. So Zohran may or may not have realized that his political rhetoric is likely going to cause New York City.
Well, no, he's realizing that all of the things that he promised on the campaign trail, one, he cannot do, and two, aren't going to solve any of the problems that New York has. How is free buses going to make apartments more affordable? How? How are state-run grocery stores going to make rent more affordable? How is price controls so that the people who own these buildings can't actually make enough money to maintain or upkeep these buildings? How is that making rent more affordable. All of these things that he thinks are going to help don't do anything. Shocker.
A lot of tax dollars.
Who
Right?
would have
Because
predicted?
ultimately, you need somebody else's money to pay for socialism. And when the people who don't have money
Well,
leave, then
no,
it's gonna
you don't need someone else's money. You either need someone else's money or you need to do it for free. You don't get to live in this reality where everyone's a billionaire and no one gets to do any work. Either some people are billionaires or everyone is.
be really hard to pay for the socialism without heavy taxation on the middle class. In fact, New York City is already experiencing the consequences of tax the rich, because what tax the rich actually really means in practice is tax the middle class, okay? And they do that in various ways, like, you know, those little fees that seem random, okay? The regulations that come up all of a sudden, right, when the city needs tax dollars. Yeah. Typically, that doesn't fall on the rich. It falls on the middle class.
Change is on the way for New York City businesses. Starting in July, they will have to install brand new security gates that are at least partially see-through.
All right, but many are calling for that new rule to be delayed. As Fox 5's Meredith Gorman shows us, a lot of business owners are complaining that they were not given enough notice.
A 17-year-old law known as Local Law 75 is finally about to be enforced in New York City, requiring storefront security gates to be at least 70% see-through instead of solid metal by July 1st. City officials say the change is meant to help first responders see inside businesses during emergencies, while also improving the look of city streets. But many small business owners say they're frustrated they're only now hearing about the rule, especially with replacement costs ranging from thousands to even tens of thousands of dollars. Some city council members saying businesses should have received more notice before enforcement begins.
When you pass a law, you need to let people to know it.
Businesses found in violation
That
will
is
have
very
90
true.
days to replace their gates before facing fines, starting at $250 for a first offense and at least $1,000 for repeat violations.
Wow.
The Department of Buildings says enforcement will only be responding to 311 complaints from the public rather than proactively inspecting gates across the city. And some store owners say they may wait until they receive a violation before paying for the upgrades.
The cost is so high that we will just wait for someone maybe to file a complaint. Then when we have to do it, then we have to deal with it.
Other longtime business owners say the added cost simply isn't realistic right now.
Almost $10,000. How can I afford? Because everybody business not too good, and then price is high.
Now, some city council members are pushing for a delay in enforcement.
Our office also wrote a letter to commissioner and the mayor, ask them to delay the enforcement. So give us city council.
Yeah. That is what tax the rich actually is. In practice, that's what it is. What happens is that these people, they come out here and they claim, well, we need more revenue. We got to pay for more socialism, right?
So,
And again, the revenue.
so what does that mean? That means that they nickel and dime you, the taxpayer. The wealthy people are taxpayers. Sorry.
Doesn't really come from the rich, because the rich can just leave. But when you have regular, normal business owners, right, mom and pop shops that are just trying to survive, okay, they can't just get up and leave because they've essentially made a business and a life there, okay? They're not uber rich. What happens is that the city says, okay, well, we're going to start implementing these little fines, right, these little junk fees. You know, they're going to start enforcing laws that were on the books that they weren't enforcing before. Yeah, that's what they do, right? They start to hit the middle class and small businesses with extra taxes, with more taxation in order to fund the socialism, because socialism is not affordable without middle class taxation. That is what these progressives do not want to tell the truth about, right? They keep lying to you and trying to pretend as if we can afford socialism by just taxing the rich, and that's not the case, because a vast majority of the money that is needed to fund socialism has to come from the middle class. You cannot point to one socialist nation.
I mean, arguably, not even really taxing the middle class is enough.
In Europe, that does not have high taxation of the middle class, right? They tax the middle class heavily because it is necessary. Now, if y'all want to pay more tax to the government for them to send to Somalis in Minneapolis, Minnesota, so that they can send the money to Somalia for Al-Shabaab and other Islamic terrorists to get access to our tax dollars, right? If you want to blow your money on waste, fraud, and abuse by sending it to the government, write them a check your damn self, right? But I personally don't want to do that, okay? I want to pay as little in taxes as possible, and the government should constrain their spending. They need to stop spending all this money on waste, fraud, and abuse and lower taxes for everybody. That's what actually should happen. And that's what Jeff Bezos is advocating for, right? He's going to give Zohran Mamdani a brutal reality check on how New York City is currently run and the issues, the real problems with New York City that are not being talked about. But you have this demonization of individuals who actually are providing real jobs, real opportunity, economic growth to a city like New York. But again, they're being demonized as if they're the bad guys. When the real bad guys are the Democrats and the socialists that are running the government into the ground and blowing people's tax dollars. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this.
These days, it feels almost impossible to pick up a newspaper without reading a headline about wealth in America, about the billionaire class, about wealth inequality and policy and everything else. And it's taken a uniquely critical turn, I think. And I'm so curious, before we even get into everything else, what do you think about that right now?
Why do you think that? Why would you think that? What would lead you to believe that?
Well, first of all, Andrew, I'm glad you're asking the question. I think it's a really important topic, and I think it's an important one to discuss because I see the same thing you do. You know, you see it in a bunch of headlines, you see it in a bunch of places, and I have been thinking about like what is driving this? Because it does seem different from 10 years ago, and I think what's going on is that it's kind of a tale of two economies. So you have a bunch of people in this country who are doing really well, but you also have a bunch of people in this country who are struggling. Struggling with pay rent, groceries, and so
you have some people who live in storm drains.
You know, what's happening here is politicians are using the kind of age-old technique. So there's this tale of two economies, and they're using this age-old technique of, you know, picking a villain and pointing fingers. But the problem is...
Yeah, aka Marxism.
Yeah,
right?
So there are oppressors and there are the oppressed, and they are rallying the oppressed to go after the oppressors.
Let's be clear what they're doing. The technique is Marxism, okay? That's what they're doing, right? That's what they're using.
That doesn't solve anything. And so, like, if you want to help the group of people who are struggling, you have to figure out...
Wow. You know, I feel like there's someone all the time who says that a lot of these things that they're doing don't do anything. I don't know who that would be.
Real root causes and solutions, and that takes skill. You know, it's like the way if we have a problem at Amazon, you know, the way we would fix it is we would go in and we'd do the 5 whys and we'd try to get to a root cause. We'd try to find a root fix. And then when we fix it at the root, you're fixing it forever. It's a real solution. And what we don't do, because it doesn't work, is just point fingers and blame people. It might feel good for 10 seconds, but doesn't accomplish anything. And so what could you really do? So, like, I started...
Do you have a plan?
I have some ideas. I have some places to start. So, you know, I started thinking about this and doing some research. A nurse in Queens who makes $75,000 a year pays more than $12,000 a year in taxes. Does that really make sense? So people talk about, you know, making the tax system more progressive. How about we start by having the nurse in Queens not pay taxes? Why is a nurse in Queens who makes $75,000 a year paying more than $1,000 a month in taxes? That's
right.
$1,000.
I don't think you understand. Like
a month that could help with rent or groceries or anything.
Yeah, I actually agree with this. I agree with this a lot, right? I really.
When you're only making $75,000 and they're taking 12 in taxes every year.
Generally speaking, if you make under $100,000, you probably shouldn't pay taxes, right? And the reason why I say this is because I'm a big believer in tax cuts for the middle class. And most importantly, incentivize.
Why, at that point, they should just pay for the programs themselves. Like,
work, okay? I really do believe that if you're a middle class in this country, that your money is better spent in your own pockets, right? Not in the government's pockets, okay? It's better spent allowing people to take more risk because they have more money, okay? They can use that money, they can invest more. Hopefully they make better decisions with it. And if people don't make good decisions, then they just gotta suffer, right? I mean, let's just be real. They just gotta suffer, okay, if they don't make good decisions. But for, again, those who make good decisions in your middle class, you take that extra money.
It's funny that you say that, because you say that people should be put in prisons. Well, putting people in prisons isn't them suffering. Them suffering would be leaving them alone by themselves to wallow in their failure and kind of just die. Like,
paying it to the government, you're investing, you're starting a new business.
You wouldn't pay to feed and house and clothe them. You would just leave them outside of society to fend for themselves.
Gaining new skills, you're doing something to continue to progress, right? And again, I believe keeping more of your own money is a better way of doing that than some government program, okay? In fact, if you look at the original income tax proposals, they were for the rich, right? That's how it was originally designed, right? It was just the 1% pay taxes and everybody else don't pay taxes, right? I mean, back then they had tariffs and stuff. You know, they had other means of collecting taxes from the middle class. But when it came to the income tax, the original proposal was supposed to be just for the 1%, right? It was supposed to be just for the wealthy. But like all of these tax the rich initiatives, it always ends up taxing the middle class, right? That is what happens almost every single time, okay? That's what happens. So when it comes to this proposal from Jeff Bezos, the problem with this is that socialists would never accept this because, again, that part about, hey, if you keep more of your money, you should make better decisions, right?
Well,
and you should.
It's not social. The only way that social programs work in their eyes is everyone contributing.
Rely on the government. They got a problem with that because there are a lot of people who don't want to work hard. There are a lot of people who don't make good decisions with their money.
The only way they can think to have the system function is to have it function like an insurance company, where everyone pools their money together, and then as people need that money, they can draw on it.
Right? And socialists love to appeal to those people because those people believe that their outcome in life is dependent on somebody else, right? They like blaming other people for their problems. And this is why they want to take other people's money and redistribute the money to people who don't want to work or people who make bad decisions because those people lack accountability. Okay, that's what socialism comes down to. You're appealing to people who are either lazy, right? They don't want to work. They make bad decisions and they lack accountability. If you work hard, if you make good decisions, and if you hold yourself accountable, you're going to be very well off. And I think, again, it is better.
No, see, but even you talk about the small business owners who are struggling because of these things. Like, not necessarily.
For that type of person to keep their own money rather than have the government take the money and to redistribute the money to, again, people who don't want to work, people who make bad decisions, etc. So I think that Bezos is on to something here, right? If you want to make the tax code more progressive, okay, quote unquote progressive, then yeah, more tax cuts, right? Tax cuts for the middle class. I think that's a great way to do it. But also you got to get rid of some of the welfare, okay? That's the caveat.
But that's the problem, is they don't want to get rid of the welfare.
Pull back on the welfare as well too. And again, socialists don't want to do that because, again, that is how they gain power. That's how Democrats gain power. Putting people on welfare, putting people on the government who, again, don't want to work hard, who don't want to make good decisions, who make bad decisions constantly. The government giving them handouts is how they maintain power. So, again, that's the problem.
Well, see, but then the problem isn't actually the people or even necessarily the programs. It's the government structure that's continuing to fund these things that don't work. At what point in the process is there some sort of evaluation to say, okay, this isn't working, we need to change it, or we need to get rid of it and replace it with something else? This is LA. Well, despite the fact that we've been doing these homeless programs for however long as we've been doing them, we've only decreased homelessness by 70%. Okay, well that must mean that either the programs aren't as effective as we think they are, or there's some sort of bottleneck somewhere in the pipeline that needs to be addressed. That's not happening. Oh, we should just pat ourselves on the back and say that we're doing a good job. Why?
That's the real issue.
The real issue is they don't solve the problems. They solve the problems 17% and then say, well, I guess we solved it. I guess that we've completely eliminated racism, guys. No, you haven't. What are you talking about?
Dog world, right? Competition is important.
You haven't even gotten close. It's what he says. You can't just deal with the surface level. You have to get at the root. You have to get at why it's happening in the first place.
Made this country great, right? If there are people who are just not responsible with their money, if they don't want to work harder, if they don't want to invest in themselves, if they don't want to grow and progress, then that's on them. They got to suffer, period. But I think that the people who want to do all the right things, who work hard, who get up every single day and make themselves better in some way that positively contribute to society, I think they should keep all of their money.
And so, and by the way, do you know what that all adds up to? The bottom half of income earners in this country.
See, but that would imply that this person who pays billions of dollars in taxes doesn't pay anything. He's a good person. He's an honest, hardworking American, right? So why should he have to pay anything in taxes?
Only 3% of the tax.
Why should anyone?
It's only 3%. We can find 3%. So we don't have. It's a small amount of money for the government. You know that. And really, and the more I thought about it, to me, it's kind of absurd that we're doing this. You know, we shouldn't be asking this nurse in Queens to send money to Washington. They should be sending her an apology. It really makes no sense.
Okay, but then on the other end, the question is, should you be paying higher taxes to pay for the 3% component part of this that you think is going to need to be paid for, if not more than that, given the debts we have?
It's certainly a perfectly valid policy debate to say, do we want an even more progressive tax system? So, you know, the line that gets quoted all the time is, the wealthy should pay their fair share.
Right.
And we can argue about what the fair share is. That's a policy debate. That's okay. But the vilification is the thing that's just the distraction. And by the way, if you really are being honest about it, we don't have a revenue problem in this country. We already have the most progressive tax system in the world. The top 1% of taxpayers pay 40% of all the tax revenue. The bottom half pay only 3%. We have already, and I think it should be zero. I don't think it should be 3%. Right. I think it should be zero. So we'd be making it more progressive that way. We actually have a spending problem, and that's a skills issue. I mean, let me give you an example. The New York City...
Well, arguably, it isn't even a skills issue. Think like California. That is not a skills issue. That is an effectiveness issue. That is these programs don't work issue. That is a structural weakness. That isn't just employees. It's designed to have these flaws in it that haven't been worked out, that the programs just continue to function, continue to operate.
School system. Right. They spend $44,000 per student. $44,000. That's
okay.
30% more.
That's ridiculous sums of money
per student than other big cities like Chicago, LA, and Boston. And it's 3 times more than Miami and Houston. And by the way, New York City doesn't get better outcomes. But listen, let me just say, if
how does having a better pool help people with math? Oh, they have more opportunities. What does that even mean?
If we ran Amazon the way New York City runs their school system,
Right.
your packages would take 6 weeks to arrive.
Yeah.
We'd have to charge
Because
you
I saw this quote. It takes 6 weeks to arrive, something else, and when you got it, it wouldn't be right.
a $100 delivery fee. And then when the package did finally arrive, it'd have the wrong item in it anyway.
Right.
We can't, that's a skills issue, Andrew. It's not about...
See, it isn't a skills issue. There are fundamental problems with the machine that even though these fundamental problems are there, they just wave them off. Oh, it's fine. Just let it go.
Just competence.
It's what it's supposed to do.
I think it's hard to disagree that competence is a part of it, right? Like the people running the government are incompetent.
Because competence doesn't matter if the policies or the way that it's supposed to be run is inefficient. The greatest employment force in the world isn't going to counter structural problems. You can have the best engineers working on a bridge. If you tell them that they have to build the bridge in such a way that the bridge is structurally unsound, then it doesn't matter whether they follow the specifications. It doesn't matter whether the best engineers on the planet. If you tell them to build it in poor ways, it's going to be poor.
But at the
it's
same
going
time,
to be
I think
poorly
it's more than just
constructed.
incompetence. I think it's corruption, and I think it's also just kind of what you get with democracy, right? People are gonna always vote to have the government spend more money, right? Because nobody wants to come off the government team.
Well, no,
right?
it's... Oh, my Wi-Fi DC. Just give me a sec. We're back. I don't remember what we were talking about.
Right? Just kind of what you get with democracy, right? People are gonna always vote to have the government spend more money, right? Because nobody wants to come off the government team, right? They don't want to, and it just
No, there is not a solution to deviance. What do you do with people who are disabled who can't work? If you just work hard and you just do everything you can and you just go as hard as you can, then you'll make it. No, you won't. People need to suffer for their problems. Okay, so if I'm a business and I can't make my space wheelchair accessible, is that my fault or is that the person in the wheelchair's fault? Do I have to be accountable for them? Why? Do I have to make my business accessible to them? Why? They're the ones who have this disability. I don't. Why should I have to perform for them?
It so happens that the Democrat Party is built around that, right? So all these Democrats running these cities, right, running these school systems, which Jeff Bezos correctly points out run very inefficiently, is done on purpose. Because, again, that is what sustains Democrat power and control, right? That is what their party is built off of, right? Saying, hey, let's cut the government, let's make the government more efficient. It's like saying, let's give Democrats less power, right?
Well, it's because of what he says, where just throwing more money at it doesn't mean that it's going to be better. You can throw billions of dollars into a program, but if that program is a failure, if that program doesn't do what it's supposed to do, then it doesn't matter how much money you pour into it. Well, we spent all this money on this program and it isn't doing anything. Because it hasn't been doing anything the whole time. You just haven't noticed and gone in there to try to fix it.
That's exactly what it is. Which is why, again, Democrats like Zohran, Mamdani, others, they want to continue to expand the social safety nets. They want to continue to expand the government. They want to continue to expand the system because that is power. Once you expand, it's hard to retract, right? It's hard to take away a social program once you've already implemented it, right? Once you start paying for everybody to have daycare, right? Free, okay? It's hard to take that away. Whoever takes that away is going to lose elections, right?
See, but they're not, because if it's too expensive and it brings people's cost of living down, then no, it won't be.
So that's the issue. Ultimately, the incentive structure of government is not the same as the private sector, and that's the unfortunate reality. But I think the point that Jeff Bezos is making here is spot on. It's like, look, if you want to make the tax code more progressive, then just get rid of taxes for those who are at the bottom of the income ladder, right, in this country.
See, because they can't, because the only way that you can cut revenue is by cutting spending. They don't want to cut spending. You can't cut revenue if you aren't going to cut spending.
And also on top of that, the government needs to do a better job with spending, right? They need to spend less. We have a spending problem. New York City is already taxed out the ass. If you are rich,
okay, well, I don't know how to tell you this, but New York just elected a mayor whose solution to all these things is more programs, more free things, and more money.
in New York City, you're already taxed heavily, and these people are saying, well, see, you're not paying enough, right?
Yeah, well,
And it's like, again,
in a free and fair election where the people had the right to choose, they chose that.
questions, okay, whether or not the government has a spending problem
Just-
is the government.
Jeff Bezos can sit there and point the finger all he wants, but ultimately, the people of New York chose for this to happen. The people of New York asked for this to happen. They were asking Kathy Hochul to jump on board.
Government spending money on stuff that they shouldn't be spending money on. Like, how does this work? People, the socialists never asked themselves that. And the Democrats never asked themselves that, because ultimately, at the end of the day,
But they're going to be the ones who are going to finally usher in the socialism that works for everyone. They're finally going to take this failed utopian ideal, and they're going to be the ones to figure it out.
power.
They're going to be remembered. That's all that it's about, is being remembered by history. Do you know how many people die forgotten, that no one knows their names? They did nothing. They left no lasting impact on humanity. And they're just gone now.
That's what it comes down
That's
to.
probably like
So, I don't
70% of the entire population is just obscurity and then nothing. Like, you're
think it's
already
just
playing a losing game.
I
It
think
doesn't
it's done
matter.
on purpose, because again, it's a power thing, right? So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly,
They asked for it. Jeff Bezos can sit there and say whatever he wants, but ultimately the people of New York wanted to tax the billionaires, want the billionaires to be taxed more. The people, the citizens, think that this is the solution. Nothing is going to change as long as the people who are responsible for implementing these policies continue to be validated that their policies are good ideas. New York is never going to see government that actually cleans up New York until New Yorkers get it in their heads that the way that the administrations in the past have worked don't do what they're supposed to. So you shouldn't vote for them anymore. They want this. This is like, again, you say that the Democrat Party is being co-opted. No, it's not. This is who they are. Big government, big taxes, heavy regulation. That's the Democrats. That has been the Democrat platform the whole time. And it's because the more you tax, the more you have to spend, the more you can spend. It's one where if I were Jeff Bezos, I would very seriously consider moving out of the United States. I don't know where he'd go. I don't know where would be better. But if this country is going to take as hostile of a stance as it does against the wealthy people, and he is a wealthy person, I would not think that it was a good idea to remain. But I guess that's really up to him. I'm not going to tell him what to do. It's one of those where we really just have to wait. If Mamdani can figure it out, and he can actually validate any of his claims, and he can actually make arguments for why his way of viewing the economy and that sort of thing is better, then Fine. At this point, none of the things that he said none of the things that he promised he was going to do, he's actually done. In fact, a lot of the things that he's promised, he has now come out and said that he can't do. So, I don't know what the people of New York think that they're going to get from him, other than just more broken promises, more disappointment, and a system that continues to function poorly. I can see the credit rating of the city downgrading under Mamdani's leadership. I could see it happening. Yeah, and people will say, "Oh, this is just the billionaires. The billionaires upset their citizens." There was that other guy. "Oh, we're inclusive of everyone. Oh, we would never discriminate or be mean to other people." Yes, you would. Are you kidding? That's again, it's being on the right side of history. There is nothing that I can't do that isn't justified because I know that I'm right. I can tax the billionaires because I know that taxing the billionaires is right.